Hello and welcome to this week's 52 Weeks. This week we're continuing in Chapter 8, which is Economic Development. We've reached the point in the Economic Development chapter to look at recommendations for the city of Harrisburg to consider as three main priorities. Priority number 1 is the maintenance industry. Priority number 2 is strengthening the transportation hub. And priority number 3 is expand Harrisburg's private business sector. Goal 8.5, create wealth for city residents. Objective 8.5.1, create mechanisms for current residents to participate in the city's economic growth. This is important to curb the years of systemic disinvestment. Objective 8.5.2, create resident property ownership and management groups to replace absentee landlords and landowners. So what this does is begin to change who owns the property within our cities and know that it's internal within the city bounds. This is one thing that surfaced with all of the community meetings. Primary concern voiced by the neighborhood residents of the city is absentee landlords who have a reputation for exploiting deteriorating real estate, leading to eventual complete deterioration, abandonment, and condemnation. Repeatedly, citizens complained about the one building that creates problems of health, safety, welfare, and property value on the block and within the neighborhood. We all know these properties around us, and what we need to have is a way to turn these properties back into something that contributes to the value of the neighborhood. That's parcel by parcel, street by street, block by block, and eventually the value will come back, and we've knitted the city together in its resource and capacity. Continuing on with the action items, Action 8.5.2.1, adopt funding mechanisms that allow current residents to borrow money at reduced rates to purchase properties. Action 8.5.2.2, explore a tiered property tax structure where resident owners pay substantially less tax than absentee landlords. Action 8.5.2.3, use city pre-qualified contractors who incorporate area resident building skills and landscape trainees. This is again as we build these skills, city residents. In wrapping up priority number 1, the maintenance industry, here's a quick overview of what we just discussed. The economic development benefits are significant. We've got general property appreciation that will be happening. Increasing the skill base in the city, at least 3,000 new jobs are achievable. Development of export economy for city residents. These are in the higher skills in property management and the fine construction skills that can be then exported out to other areas. Increased affordability for local property owners benefiting from sustainably reduced maintenance costs. All of these point to the potential for the development of maintenance industry within the city and that impact that it could have for all residents in the city of Harrisburg. As we close out this segment, we'll look at some of the additional sidebars that are within this chapter. The first is median income, and the quote there, data dividing households within specific geographic areas are into two groups of equal size, with one group with earnings above the median or average income that's adjusted for inflation, and the other group with earnings below the median. Household income refers to a combination of multiple income earners of all living in the same household. So the source here is from the Business Dictionary. Another sidebar focuses on stick-built housing. The traditional way to build a house has long been described as stick-built homes. That is, assembling the buildings on site out of sticks, pieces of lumber that are cut and nailed together into walls and roof trusses. They're linked together and sheathed with plywood on the exterior and drywall on the interior, then finished with shingles, clapboard, vinyl siding, adobe, or some kind of brick or brick veneer. So this is the definition of stick-built. When we look at around our city, this has been a traditional building methodology. New housing versus restoration. The $1.8 billion structural property undervaluation for citywide restoration. This is looking at figures that were pulled together where $1 million is equal to the regional comparable value of a restored 4,000 square foot masonry home in a desirable neighborhood. And so we take a look at our city as a whole and understand it as 4,000 square foot masonry home. A $250,000 house is the cost of demolition and building a new stick-built house in a compromised neighborhood. And if you subtract those out, we've got the $700,000 per house. So every time a masonry structure is demoed, a house that is the equivalent of 400,000 square feet, you're losing essentially $750,000 per house. This is the long-term loss of value to both the city and its residents. If this isn't recognized every time we demolish a building, we're never going to change our mentality or mindset to change what needs to be done within Harrisburg. Here's another additional sidebar. High-quality housing for all, sustainable construction. The most challenging aspect of new construction is the low price of housing stock in Harrisburg and the presence of nearly 5,000 vacant housing units. Low land values and inexpensive comparable housing stocks preclude the availability of financing through normal market channels. Another sidebar, property ownership versus home ownership. The city administration has expressed concern over the proportion of rental units to home ownership. This seems to be generated from the desire to increase the tax base. However, taxes are paid by every performing non-exempt parcel of real estate regardless of local ownership strategies. An egalitarian option is to focus intensely on expanding property ownership opportunities opportunities for people who already live in the city. 48% of the city's housing is one-unit attached houses. Adding the buildings with 2 to 4 units, which are usually subdivided houses, total for attached houses is closer to 65% of the housing stock. Cooperative housing. Housing cooperatives are a distinct form of homeownership that have many characteristics that differ from other residential arrangements, such as single-family homeownership, condominiums, and renting. The cooperation is membership-based, with membership granted by way of a share purchase in the cooperative. Each shareholder in the legal entity is granted the right to occupy one housing unit. And lastly, wrapping up maintenance industry. The potential for the development of a maintenance industry is the single most important economic development opportunity for the city. It exclusively employs city residents and provides the critical public participation in improving the city, engendering pride and creating wealth for city residents. The opportunity to evolve a significant export industry for the city creates a strong economic model for building long-term wealth for the city and its residents. So that's it for this week's segment within Chapter 8, Economic Development, with a focus on priority number 1, the maintenance industry. Hope you've enjoyed this. Please take a look at the links below this video to find out more about the maintenance industry and the comp plan. Thanks again and take care.